I can't believe I'm doing yet another Joker review or rather analysis because I already made two, but I'm afraid I have to do yet another one because there is one aspect that I haven't covered at all, and that is the political aspect. Now, don't get me wrong, this actually isn't really a political movie, and I wouldn't consider myself very political either. But that didn't stop a lot of rather political people from trying to politicize the movie. I haven't even really heard of this. I've heard of it, but I didn't really get into this too much because, like I said, I don't really care about politics. But apparently there were some people, and actually both on the left and on the right, who tried to use the movie for their agenda. And I find that quite funny because that's the whole point of the movie, is to not be like that. Because, like I said, it's not a political movie. It doesn't have a right-wing agenda, and it doesn't have a left-wing agenda. But of course, that didn't stop left-wing extremists from trying to portray it as having a right-wing agenda and trying to portray it as a dangerous movie. and I've heard some people on the right, do the same and trying to portray it as having a left-wing agenda. And I find that so funny because it doesn't have either. And not only does it not have either, the entire point of the movie is precisely to kind of destroy. Yeah, I think destroy is actually the right word. To destroy those kinds of notions, those kinds of prejudices, there's always some people who want to have everything put neatly into boxes with labels on them, and they try to label everything, just like they're of course trying to label this movie as, whatever fits their agenda. So if this movie has an agenda, and if it has a political message, then it's to destroy all these kinds of labels. No matter what political label you could come up with, the whole point is to destroy those political labels. And I love that because I don't like, nobody likes being labeled whatever, and nobody likes being put into boxes, and nobody likes prejudice. So I love that movie. But of course, that's why people who are very prejudiced don't like that movie. Because maybe they don't realize it consciously that the point of the movie is to actually destroy those kinds of prejudices, but they notice it subconsciously, and so they're like, well, no, it's a terrible movie. Don't go watch it. If you watch it, it will lead to violence. Yes. No, it won't. And I've talked about that when I talked about my review of Pleasantville. Yes, the Joker has a few, not many, but one or two violent scenes in it. It's not extremely violent, but one or two people die in that movie, which is actually a very low body count. Well, no, it's not one. Maybe it's 3 people. Yeah, well, anyway, not more than a handful of people die in a Joker movie, which for a Joker movie or for any superhero movie or supervillain movie is actually a really low body count. But anyway, yes, some people die, and it's not portrayed too graphically, but, well, we do see some people get shot, yes, but that's it. And I don't think, that's not, I try to explain that when I did my analysis of Pleasantville, uh, I consider Pleasantville, or a movie like Pleasantville, a far more dangerous movie. And in Pleasantville, nobody dies at all. Pleasantville doesn't have any violence at all, pretty much. But what it does is it actually promotes violence. You can't promote violence without having violence in it. And a lot of people don't make that distinction. Just because the Joker movie has some violent scenes in it, that doesn't mean it's promoting violence. And it's not. It's not promoting violence at all. Now you might argue, well, doesn't the Joker commit those murders? And isn't the Joker portrayed as a sympathetic character in that movie? Well, no. I mean, no, he's not portrayed as a sympathetic character. And as for whether he actually committed those murders or not, well, that's another topic which I covered in my other analysis video. Is he portrayed as a relatable character? Yes. We can relate to him. And we can understand why he's, or how. We can, the whole movie is a process of him being driven mad. And we can understand why he's being driven mad and how he's being driven mad. But that doesn't mean that we agree with what he does in the end. So there's a distinction there. But anyway, let's go back to the topic of political labels, or any kind of label, actually. When it comes to such iconic characters as the Joker, people have a lot of expectations. And for example, I really loved Jack Nicholson's portrayal of the Joker, and some people like the other actors who portrayed him, and like everyone has like his favorite, and once, and everyone everyone has like really high standards, and and everyone is like, oh well, this new Joker movie has to be at least as good as my favorite Joker version, or even better. And if it doesn't live up to that, I'm gonna hate it. That's kind of the attitude everyone kind of has. So it's really difficult for the filmmakers to meet everyone's expectations, and they kind of realize that, and they kind of realize that actually it's impossible to meet everyone's expectations. So they didn't even try. They went the complete opposite way, and just tried as hard as they could to precisely defy everyone's expectations. And not just when it comes to the Joker character, but to all the when it comes to the entire movie, and when it comes to all the characters in the movie, all of them defy expectations, and they defy being put into boxes and having put labels on them. Any prejudiced worldview you might have, the characters in the movie defy all of them. And they don't just defy your notions, they destroy them. And they're doing this intentionally. So this movie does have an agenda, and you could maybe even call it a political agenda. But the agenda is to destroy your notions, to destroy people's prejudice, and to destroy whatever labels people have for the movie, for the character of the Joker, and even for all the other characters. So the movie, every time the movie introduces any character, we think, every character is introduced like in a really cliche manner. Every character is like a cliche. At least at the beginning. It's not. It's not. It's actually a very deep character study. But when we first see them, we think we know those people, but we don't. We think we know those characters, but we don't. So let's start with the character of the Joker. The Joker is still the Joker. It's still the same character, and he does everything that the Joker is supposed to do. But in all the previous versions of the Joker, we never really understood his motivations. You know, he was like, well, kind of like this wild card, you know, the Joker. He didn't have to make sense, and he didn't have to be relatable, and he didn't have to have motivations that made sense. It was, you know, entirely the opposite way around, and they flipped that. He's still a bad guy, and he's portrayed as a bad guy, and the violence he commits is in no way glorified, nor is it in no way being portrayed as justified. But we now do understand what drives him to commit those atrocities. And that's kind of an inversion of the Joker character, because, you know, like I said previously, we never understood his motivations. So he is the Joker, but he's not the Joker that we were expecting. It's the same with all the other characters. They were also not the way we are expecting them. And this part gets a little hard for me because I'm not very familiar with, you know, the kinds of cliches and prejudices that people in the US have. And you kind of have to be familiar with those to recognize it. But I do recognize it. It's just difficult for me to explain. Like, for example, there is this term that I actually never heard before. Incels. You know, so apparently a lot of people on the left were hating on the movie even before it came out, claiming that the Joker movie would promote sympathy for incels. And apparently incels are like those really evil white people who are like racists, and I don't quite understand it, but apparently that's what incels are. And apparently if you're white and if you live alone, then you're really dangerous and you're really racist. I don't get it, because for me that just sounds like racism in and of itself, but never mind. But of course, the character of Arthur is not a racist. Nor is he portrayed as the good guy. You know, the Joker is still the villain. But, you know, since it's his origin story, you know, I mean, no one is born into the world as evil, you know. You know, there's like this, you know, this whole debate, you know, would you kill Hitler as an infant? You know, because obviously even Hitler as an infant was not evil. You don't get born evil. And so this movie shows the process of how, you know, of how someone can be driven mad and can be driven to do bad things. But that doesn't mean that he was inherently evil, you know. So I don't think there is anyone that's really inherently evil, and I don't think you should label people like that. You know, you shouldn't label people as inherently evil. And, you know, it's the same thing, you know, just because you're white and, you live alone, that doesn't mean that you're inherently evil. Nor does it mean that you're a racist. And the Joker character isn't a racist, or the Arthur character, rather, because obviously Arthur is not Joker yet. You know, Joker is, yes, Joker, I mean, maybe it's easier if you see these two characters as two separate characters. There's Arthur, and he's not evil yet, and there is Joker, which is what he becomes, and yes, Joker is evil. So maybe that helps him. But anyway, neither Arthur nor Joker are in any way racist. Quite the opposite. it's made very clear that Arthur is obviously not a racist because, he falls for that black girl living next door. Well, he falls in love with her. So obviously he's not a racist, and he doesn't fit into those boxes. The character doesn't fit in whatever boxes people wanna stick him in. And it's the same with the other characters as well. Actually, when like I said, every time a character is introduced, it looks like he's gonna be like this archetype, cliche, character, so like, when you see those rich, youngsters, or when you see, the, Thomas Wayne, that rich, billionaire, when you see them the first time, it's easy, to put them into a category and put a label on them and say like, oh yeah, those are the evil capitalists. And, the movie expects you to do that. It wants you to do that. It wants you to label its characters. It wants you to label the movie. It wants you to label everything. Because then the moment you've put them into those boxes, they're gonna destroy them. So the moment, the movie kind of realizes, okay, you've put that character into the evil capitalist, category, then the movie destroys that label by showing that it's actually much more complicated than that, and you shouldn't label people like that. And, with the capitalist, that's just one example. It does that with everything. Everything must go. That's how the movie starts, kind of, and that's also kind of how the movie ends, And I see it as, well, your preconceived notions, your prejudice, and your labeling people. That's the part that the movie wants to remove. That's the part that must go. So all your labels, all your prejudices, all of that must go. And the movie really makes an effort to destroy whatever notions you might have. And that's why some people don't like it and find it offensive. But it's actually not at all. I love the movie. And watch it in that light, and I think you're gonna like it as well. Unless you're really prejudiced.